Hello and welcome. This is Heavy Business. I'm Aaliyah,
And I'm Curtis.
and today we are here with Maurizio Iacono of Kataklysm, XDO, Invictus, Hard Impact Management, and Continental Touring. Welcome, Maurizio. Did I forget anything?
Distortion Music Group. As the only
Distortion
other
Music.
thing I have, it's like a small record label I started not long ago. But yeah,
Okay,
I do
awesome.
a lot of things. I wear many hats.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you so much for squeezing us into your schedule. I know you're about to leave on tour, so thanks for coming on to the podcast.
No problem. No problem at all.
To kick things off, I think, like you said, you wear a lot of hats, and I think most of our listener base is going to be familiar with your music, but they may not know how involved you are in the music business side of things. So
Right.
would you be so kind as to give us a summary of what you do in the metal music industry and how you got there?
Well, I obviously started real young. I think it was young when I was 16, 17 years old. I got a record deal really quickly. Coming out, I was in high school or a high school band, pretty much Kataklysm. That's how it started. And we got signed to Nuclear Blast pretty quickly after our first demo. And from there, I decided to get really interested in how everything works. It wasn't just I was never just interested in being a musician, although that was my first passion and still in many ways is my main thing that I love to do. Um, uh, I I decided to really get involved into how things work, from a mechanical point of view, almost like from the how do you make the CDs? Why is this that? Like I have a lot of questions. So I started getting into it, and as I was progressing, I learned that I was able to, although I made mistakes, I was able to really repair them quickly and be able to learn how to maneuver. And with time, it just started kind of leading me towards management for bands because I kind of was touring with a lot of these guys out there, and I was backstage on festivals and talking to a lot of musicians and stuff, and then they were telling me, "Man, this is screwed up. This is," and I said, "Why don't you try this and that?" And then they did it, and it worked. So I was like, "Well, maybe I could do something." And at some point, a guy called Andy Siri that was at Nuclear Blast for a very long time in Germany told me you would be a really good manager if you were to apply yourself into it. That could be something. So I kind of took that as a signal, and I was like, okay, let me see. And I started dabbling into it a little bit, and then I in 2000, I believe in 2007 or eight or something like that, I was on tour with XDO in Europe, and I was starting to kind of help bands already. I was working kind of with Decapitated and a couple of bands I was kind of helping on the side. And I fell on a band called Ailstorm over there that I was touring with. They were on my roster, and we were on the same package. It was a pagan fest in Europe, and we were there touring. And then the band was in shambles. They were all over the place. They didn't own their merch. Like everything was just real bad. Like they were about to break up, and I saw what the crowd was like really going nuts for them, and I was like, there's got to be something to be done here. And I kind of stepped in, offered my services to help them, and then from there, kind of everything opened up as far as management's concerned. So I started with them, and then just developed them to work with them for over 10 years. And from there, I signed all kinds of different bands from Flesh God Apocalypse, Septic Flesh, just a lot of bands. And I kind of had that in me, I guess. It was just something natural. And I just, like I said, I study everything. And the most important thing for bands are agencies. And I like to develop bands. And I always thought there was never anybody out there to really develop bands. There's a lot of agencies that take bands that are already established, which is easy to do. But to take a band from the bottom and to break him, that's the biggest challenge. So we started an agency kind of focused on that, and it kind of developed into a mid-level. We're doing probably one out of the two tours you're seeing right now, in the States, or we are
Pretty
kind of
much 80% of the shows
a
that I
lot.
want to go
Yeah.
to
So
are
yeah,
continental.
we do a lot of tours. So we got a big roster, about over 50 bands right now. So like I said, it's just, you followed, I always follow my gut feeling, my instinct, and that's what it brought me, you know what I mean, in the end. I do too much. I've been told that I do way too much. I was like I don't have enough with all this. I start a record label, kind of, you know. So it's kind of like, and I have to kind of slow down a little bit on certain things and concentrate on what I have, you know. But it's kind of like you know, the cookie jar, and I'm going like this, and it's like stop, you know. It's like just chill.
What else can I do?
Right, right.
Nothing.
So,
What?
but I'm happy. I'm a workaholic, and I can't just do nothing, and I don't know. It's just the way I am, you know. So that's how
Uh,
pretty much it all got started.
I wanted to ask though, what do you consider to be your main gig out of everything that you do, if you have
Well,
a main gig?
when I'm home, it's mainly management because but management, I bring it everywhere. And the problem with management is it is a problem because if you're in a Sunday afternoon and you're spending time with your family or doing whatever, here comes the phone call. There's a band with troubles somewhere in Sweden or somewhere in Japan, and I have to fix it. So that's where it gets tough, you know, when you're running a management company, because it's like being a doctor. It's 24/7. There's bands everywhere. Things are happening, so it's very difficult, you know, to kind of have that thing where you want to sometimes do 9 to 5. You know, nobody wants to do the 9 to 5, but sometimes it's cool because you could just shut off. You know, like with this, you can't. So that's the problem. Like that's the way I see it as a problem, you know, for kind of like the stress level. Other than that, I adore what I do, and it's you know, part of who I am, and it's fine, you know.
Cool.
So
Yeah, it's that work-life balance that you just really can't. Your work becomes your life.
exactly, you know, and I've learned with time, although I'm difficult because if I get a message, I'm not gonna ignore it. It's just not the way I am, right? So I'm gonna be like, what's the problem? What can I do, you know, to fix it? And that's just the way I am. So I'm very involved, you know. So it's hard to balance that, you know, management and all that stuff, and then playing a band, you know, and then not one, but I decided to do two, and then like let me do a
And
solo
now
record. That's like, so
it's so much. How do you manage it all?
well, I just, you know, right now we're doing a Cataclysm record. I just did the Invictus record. I put it out. We went through some crazy stuff with that record, and it's out, done. And now I'm like, all right, what's next? Right. So it's just kind of goes like this, you know, and it's like I just keep going with the flow. Time to do this, time to do that, you know. It's just I feel bad for the guys that work with me, you know, that are like, I'm like, let's do it. And they're like, really? Again? I'm like, yeah. It's like I just feel that for me, management is work, right? I have passion in it, but it's work. I help people, I help their careers. I'm involved, like if I'm a band member with them. But with Cataclysm, Exdeo, that's passion. With Exdeo, it's more passion because it's historic. It's like kind of where I come from with my roots and all that. So I'm very involved with that. I like that, right? But with Cataclysm, it's therapeutic. Invictus also therapeutic. So so I have to write. You know, it's like reading a book for some people. For me, I have to write. So it's not just I need a paycheck. See, it's not about that. I just do management. I'm okay. I do Cataclysm and all the other stuff because it's therapeutic for me. So it's a different vibe. You know what I mean?
For sure. I mean, I think a lot of musicians, it's not easy to make a living with music, so a lot of them do it because it's just something
It wasn't
they
easy
have
back
to do.
then. It's harder now. You know, if you're not a star, it's really hard now.
Is it harder now? What do you think the major differences are now?
Well, you know, it's there's good now, right? Like the good is that you have direct contact to your fans, which is already like a big plus. You have you're able, if you want, to start a buzz on your own, being able to release your music on your have your own distribution, printing your own CDs. You have all those elements. The element that's impossible almost to be when you're on your own is touring. You need an agency for that. You need a guy like me to believe in you, bring you out, right? So that's the number one thing for a band to really make money. You need the road. But for example, when it comes to in general aspect, it's easier on that level Back in the day, however, you had record labels that put a lot of money in you. If they believed in you, they were like, how much money do you need to go on tour? Well, we need flights, we need tour bus, we need this. And they'll be like, all right, here's 30 grand, go. If you don't do well, then you're done. But if you do well, you had a chance, right? So if you were good, you know you could do it. So it was a different world back then. Like, I mean, I I don't consider myself old, but I come from a very long, span of time where in the sense of when I started this, the internet was a fax machine. You know what I mean? And it's like there was no internet. Like at the beginning, I'm talking about like mid 90s, like there was no internet. It was not everybody's on MS-DOS at school, like trying to figure out what this was. And it's like crazy. There was no, it's a completely different world. So you have to adapt. But back then it was all, word to mouth. You buy CDs, see, you're selling product. Now what happened is they were ripping off artists back in the day. In my opinion, this is really how it is. I'm not a guy to mince my words when it comes to record labels and stuff like that. It was easy to rip off bands with CDs, vinyl, whatever they produce. But you still could kind of account for it and be able to kind of, be able to make some money. They just signed bad record deals, you'd be screwed. Fast forward to now, you can't sell product as much unless you're on the road. Everything is in the air, meaning digital. You can't really control it. Now they give you high royalty on product like CDs and vinyl, right? They have no problem paying the artist when it comes to vinyl and CDs and stuff like that now, because it's obsolete, right? It's not what it was. But the digital, they'll screw you on that. Right. So that's the difference, right? They used to be like, yeah, no problem. Here's 80% of the digital, you keep it. They didn't believe in it. But now it's the only thing that matters. So now it's like, oh, here's 30%, like they do these deals that it's nowhere near what it was for making money on a CD versus that, so it has to get adjusted. It'll take time. So the road remains the main income maker for bands.
Interesting. What do you think that you see indie bands doing wrong in general these days?
Unsigned bands? You mean like bands that are unsigned?
Like unsigned, yeah, independent bands.
It's not that they're doing anything wrong, is that there's too many. So when you have, 300 bands sending you music, a guy like me that's busy already, I get 300 bands sending me music all the time. It's very difficult for me to take time and listen to everything. It's actually different than back in the day. Back in the day, they would release music and it sounded like shit. It's in a cassette. You're trying to fucking listen. It's no good. Now it's way easier. So they send you a link, you listen to it. The productions are higher. People have way more money to invest in their bands now. They're actually able to even tell you, hey, here's this much money, bring me on tour. They got money. It's a completely different ballgame, actually. And I'd venture to say a lot of indie bands have more money than the actual artists out there signed. So I don't think they're doing anything wrong. I think there's just too much. So the competition is way higher to get noticed. And the one thing I would advise to bands, find your own path. Because a lot of bands, they look at whatever is working right now and they jump on it. There's one pirate band, now there's 15. There's a Monomart, now there's 200 of them. It's like as soon as it works, they feel that's the only way they're going to get recognized. And now they're not doing what they're really meant to do, which is be themselves with their own product. You know what I mean? So I think that they need to, if they think they're and be your best critic, right? If you think that you're good, that, you listen to your own music and you say, man, I really enjoy listening to my music, right? Then other people will do the same. But if you suck and you believe that you're good, it's a different story. So that's going to take a long time to convince other people that you're got what it takes. So be your hardest critic of yourself. whatever you do to others, do to yourself. Meaning, like, you listen to a song, they suck, new album sucks. You're gonna hear that all the time. Do that to yourself when you're writing music, and then from there, just, as much as you can, push it on social media, because that's where everything's at right now.
I wanted to jump in really quickly, which was, when do you think bands are ready to contact you?
They
You
gotta
as for
they got
touring and management, like
That's a
the different things.
very good question. So
Yeah.
basically, honestly, they gotta have a buzz already internally. There's gotta be something, because for me to take something that's completely unknown and take it from nothing and to start a buzz on it, it's gonna take a lot of resource, a lot of time, and it's something I just don't have. And if I'm like that, all the big guys, all the big record labels, or even worse, sometimes they'll take a chance, right? They'll throw something out there and see how it works. Problem with that is, if you do that and it fails, the band's scarred, right? Like, everywhere they'll turn, they'll be like, how come you get dropped? How, from your record label? How come they, oh wow, you have really bad stream numbers? Then you're in that place where to regain that credibility is very difficult. So it's really important, in my opinion, at least in the beginning, in this day and age, to work on your own thing and get that buzz going on your own. Either way, it's local or internationally, however you do it, you got to get that social media moving. You got to get those people, you got to get all of that stuff going. And you like, you got to interact with other bands, go on their pages. You, like, just be out there, promote your brand. You have to be the first believer in your brand. That's very important. So you got to create a buzz first, at least have some sort of following, you know what I mean, like something. And I think then you get my attention. And then with that, like, the one good example of a band we signed that is growing quickly, is doing well, is Storm Ruler from St. Louis.
Okay.
And so they're on Napalm, right? And Napalm wanted to sign the band, but he says, I need a guy like you behind him. What do you think? I said, well, do you believe in the band? And they're like, yeah. So I was like, that's why we're coming to you. And I said, well, let me look at it. And I said, fuck, these guys are great. So I was like, they sounded like Dissection, and I was like, this is going to be a really good band. And I said, all right, let's do it. And I can see, like, how they're slowly climbing on their own, right? But they already had kind of a buzz. They had an image, they had a good logo, they had a good artwork. You got to, like I said, be your biggest critic. They were kind of ready for that already. So it depends. Some band need more time. It's there's so much out there. It's really, like, what I'm telling you, it's overcrowded.
So
For sure.
if you're willing to dig down a little bit deeper, and if not, that's totally fine. Like, what would you consider to be, in terms of numbers, like streaming numbers and stuff, to be, a buzz? Like, because some bands will go like, well, I have 500 streams. Like, what do you like for you?
Well, I mean, if you're independent,
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're on your own now. You went, like, with I don't know, some digital distributors out there, anybody, okay?
Yeah.
And you're doing DistroKid, whatever. You're doing it on your own, releasing your stuff, promoting it, whatever. And all of a sudden, you got between 5 and 10,000 monthly followers on stream, right? That's impressive for somebody that's got no marketing, no power behind it, nobody talking about it, no touring. If you can get to that level on your own, you already got a buzz. So 500 is not enough.
Good.
Right? 1,000, you're starting to move,
Mm-hmm.
That means 1,000 people around the world are listening to your stuff constantly.
Yep.
You gotta look at it that way, right? So if you come to me and says, we got what it takes, we're like this, we're gonna work hard, we're gonna do all this stuff, I'm gonna be like, all right, did you do the legwork, right? Like, okay, you have 1,500 people, let's say, following you, for example, monthly, right? Let's say, as an example. And I'll be like, okay, you got something there. And then I'll look at everything. And then if the band, because the other problem is, and that's really a problem now that we're facing with developing bands. This is something that's becoming the biggest issue, is to try and get them to be on the road. Do you have money to sustain it? Gas is out of this world. renting a vehicle is crazy. Just to get on a package is insane because everybody's out there. Just like when you have too much choice and you're a big band, you're not going to go and get whatever, right? So what do? Some of them ask for money, so you got that type of thing, so it's like I said, it's not an easy, I don't want to paint a bleak picture of the whole thing, but it's a very tough competitive industry, even if it's underground.
Yeah, I was just curious because a lot of bands will be like, well, I need a manager in order to get to that next level, and they'll go for a hunt and then they'll hire like a scam manager or whatever, so now what
There's
else?
plenty of those.
I wanted to ask you about that. Can you go over what some, in your opinion, are some red flags of when someone's looking for a manager?
Anybody that's going to ask you a monthly fee and they're going to just put you
Lots
on
of
their
those.
Facebook, hey, this band is with us and this is the music, and they don't bring you results, it's going to be only because they want that monthly fee. And there's a lot of those. A lot. So it's you want a manager that believes in you. It's like he's coming in there not asking you for money. He's going to be like, okay, I'm putting my time with you. I got artists that I've even developed now that are, out there, without mentioning names, that are doing well. And if I see that the money's tight, I don't charge them, because I'm a musician first and I understand the struggle, So to me, it's about, if you're making money, then I'll take my cut. I see it like that. So there's managements that don't do the monthly thing, but even if you're dying, they're like, give me my money. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not like that, right? I never believed in that. So that's one thing. But anybody that's going to be like, yeah, give me $500 a month or $1,000 a month, and I'll get you out there. Don't worry, I have the connections. All they're doing is taking an email, sending it to the label, and the label's not even going to pay attention. And it says, well, they're not interested. Well, then let's keep working together, see where we can get, And then you're there like this, and that's, I think that's a scam to me. Right. If you're doing a consulting thing, so why not do a consulting's different. You pay me for my advice, what you should do. And I think that's okay. But when you're saying, yeah, you can be on my management team because I have a big band, but you're not big, then you have to pay to be with me. I don't believe in that. That's just not me.
Fair enough.
To me, that's a scam.
Any others that you can think of other than the monthly fee?
Well, so that's when you go into the complex question, because then you can get a legitimate management team, but they just make you sign a real shitty deal, or they own your ass, same way as a record label owns your ass. The artist is the biggest victim there is all the time, right? You're the creator. You just want your music out there, play it for fans, enjoy your life, and do all that stuff. But everybody else is like, give me this, give me that, So I got in it because I really thought I could help, as a musician first, because I know the struggle. I know how it is. When you see like I told you, I saw all the guys in Illstorm and they're backstage after doing a show that, 1,000 people are screaming the band's name. They're in the backstage, like almost crying on the fucking sofa because they're like, fuck, we have no merch. We're like, we don't know where we're going. That's actually the truth, of okay, let me help you. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's a lot of that. Even if you so the big battle, this is how hard it is. So you guys understand, the big battle is to get recognized, right? Once you get recognized, there's a secondary battle, which is the biggest one ever, is for the general public to like you and to get famous or to do well. So there's the first battle. Fuck, I finally got recognized. Then it's like, okay, now does the world want you or not? So that's the other one, right? So it's an ongoing battle, like, in a way, when you're in the music business. It's not an easy thing, but it's a good challenge, and if people are into it for the fight, then they should do it, not care about what anybody thinks. You know what I mean? They should just go for it. So, because if you look at all this, you might be discouraged, and I'm not doing that. I'm not saying don't do it, because I'm one of those, right? Everybody told me not to do it. Like I said, I come from an Italian family. The first thing was like, cut your hair. What are you doing? Get a real job. Go do this. And I'm like, I want to play music. I want to play metal. So it's like, yeah. So that's how it is. At least that's my understanding of it after all these years.
So other than having a buzz, what makes a band stand out to you as somebody that you want to help develop?
They have to have the right attitude, as far as like the attitude is, it's whatever it takes. I want to make it like if I say you might have to do this tour and it's going to be very difficult, you're going to be in a van, it's going to be like this, it's real hard, but if you do this, we're going to be visually in a much better place. I'll be able to get you in a bigger place and with some money next time, but you're going to suffer. Are you willing to do that? That's the big one, right? Like right off the bat. In the beginning, some bands will do it one time, but you might have 3 times. This is not something that is just once and you're big. That's the big mistake a lot of bands think. They think you go in there and you get a big tour. You're opening for Amon Amarth. It's over. I got it. Everybody's going to see me. They're going to love me. It doesn't mean anything. They're going for Amon Amarth. They happen to see you. Then they better like you. If they like you, they'll remember your name. They might not buy your album. You got to come again. I remember that band. They were awesome. They're awesome again. You know what? I'm going to support them and buy the record. It's that longevity of keep pounding it, pounding and pounding, and then things are going to happen. It's and again, if the music is right, if you believe in it, it's all these things. But I'm a big believer in hard work, and like just do it. You know what I mean? Like just don't take no for an answer. I'm very like that. So. Which got me into hot water many times, but
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I was kind of curious, like, when did you kind of feel like any of your bands kind of made it, like you said? Like, what was it that actually made you kind of feel like, you know what I mean?
That I made it,
That you made it,
like with
like,
Cataclysm, you mean?
yeah, with Cataclysm.
So I think it happened in Europe for sure, right? The US was always difficult for Cataclysm. Um, it had a buzz at some point. Things were okay, but it's always been Europe for some reason, especially Germany. That's a huge market for Cataclysm, and I think it was when we toured. Like we Europe is different because they got all these open airs, right? So like when you go over there and you get exposed to like 50,000 people at Wacken, or if you're going to Summer Breeze, 30,000 people see you, and then you're going into a club run, they remember you from the open air. They go see you in the club. The reaction is big, and then you're exposed way more. So the system in Europe for exposure is way bigger than the US for metal, especially what I do, the underground stuff more, right? So the system is, because here we have a lot of festivals in the States, but they're all like, Rockville and things that are like really commercial. We don't have anything. Jamie Jasta's bringing back Milwaukee Metal Fest, which is awesome. So like things like that, the New England Metal Fest used to happen. Like if you got stuff like that, you get that chance to be exposed to a lot of people at once. That's very important. For Cataclysm, it was when we did a summer run on the album Shadows and Dust. And we were doing a summer run because we had festivals, and we didn't know what the band was worth at that time. We knew we had a buzz, but we didn't know anything. And we went in these clubs, and they were all sold out. And then I was like, okay, what the hell's going on? Like I knew that there's something there. And then the following tours that we did after that, we were touring with bands like Cannibal Corpse, and we were outselling them in merch and doing all this stuff. Then when the half the place got your shirt on, that you got it, right? So that's the type of thing that's a signal. Merchandise should be a really good indicator. A lot of people that are unsigned or starting off are going to go to a show and people are going like, awesome, yeah, they're screaming, it's great, you feel like they love you, but then you go and you sold 2 shirts. That is an indicator if the people that go and that actually spend the money on your shirt, on your CD, and you're selling, that's the indicator. So whatever you hear out there, this is an inside thing. We look at merch numbers, because merchandise is where we know if the band's doing well. How much is the count per head? If there's 200 people, did you sell for $5 a head, $3 a head, $6? That's how you manage to see the strength of the band.
Interesting.
So that's a very good indicator that you are growing, and then you start thinking, my last store did $2 a head. Now I'm doing $4 a head, so I've doubled in size. And that's very important indicator, because that's how you gauge it. So because you need numbers, right, to show people. So it's either attendance or it's how you're doing on merch. Internally, it's merchandise. Outside, it's your attendance. So if you're headlining and there's 500 people every night, that's what you go out there to other promoters, because you want to get on the bigger band tour. Well, we pulled 500 on our own everywhere. They're like, okay, that's a good number. We'll get you on this tour, right? If you're doing 50 people a night, they'll be like, yeah, sorry, dude, we got another 55 bands that are doing 500 a night. We're gonna pick one of those. And that's the reality of the industry, because you're gonna notice. I'm gonna throw some stuff out here, and you guys do whatever you want with it. You're gonna notice that there's like this elite kind of surrounding bands that always tour together. You're gonna have, I'm not gonna mention names, but you're gonna have
we know.
You got 4 or 5 bands that are always together, and it's like over and over and over and over and over. And it's like, then it's not them, it's gonna be somebody else. And then all of a sudden, you're gonna have an opener on that same package that you see the same bands always together. And that band is gonna be something that's coming out of nowhere that's popping. That's that band that's doing 500, 600 on their own. They're selling $8,000 worth of merch or something crazy. And now they want that. So they'll grab that. It's never because they want to give somebody an opportunity. It's because it's easy for them to sell tickets on their package. So that's the truth, right? They'll paint it whatever they want to paint it out there, but that's the truth. So I'm in a different world where we have to develop bands, because if we don't, there's not going to be an industry. So I'm kind of like in the mid-level. I'm before all that big stuff you hear, the Lamb of Gods, all that Slayer, like all that stuff that's up there. I'm below that, but I'm the guy that's in the machine that's with others working to, well, let's try this band out. Let's try this band out. Because if we don't do that, there's nobody doing that. There's not going to be no more Slayers, or Panteras or whatever. So that's these guys came like that. They're playing little bars, killing it, and then people are like, let's give them a shot, So even if I'm a stepping stone, I'm happy with that. It doesn't matter to me. It's just about the idea of developing, keeping preservation of what we have,
Makes sense. So I was curious about something like, okay, so you as a band member, so like Kataklysm does a lot of headlining, but you guys have also done some support slots. Like recently, I think you guys did the Deicide tour, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
How
We
do
had
you
a lot
kind
of fun. We did it twice because we had a lot of fun on it.
So how do you kind of figure out, like, is it what's more worth it for you to headline or to go out and support? Like, what's the thought process?
That's a good question. And honestly, it's really because if we go on a headliner tour, right, and we do okay, right, but for example, Deicide is a very strong band. It's been around forever, and it has like the good credibility you want, and they're just a stronger band in the United States. So for us to try and play after them didn't make sense. And you kind of have to know your place, as well. We brought a lot of people to the tour, but at the end, Deicide is Deicide, and it's like there's camaraderie there, but at the end, it's really about the numbers. Again, it always comes down to that, right? They have a history. We have a history. I understood that I prefer to be supporting bands in the United States. I don't like to go headliner because I might do really well in Chicago or New York or whatever, but then I'll go in, I don't know. But for Kataklysm, it's kind of the opposite. We do really well in the South, and then we go in the North. It's kind of hit and miss. And I don't like that. Like I want to be solid across the board. And to do that, I prefer, this is my strategy here. I prefer to give the responsibility to somebody else to do that.
Ah,
So I'm going to be right under it. Then that's just strategics, right? In Europe, I'm way more confident. So I do a way more, I do a lot more headlining there, because I know what I'm going to do. I look at my numbers for the last 10 years, 15 years, they're pretty much stable. So I know that that's what I'm going to do when I go there. So it's a lot easier to headline, and there's more money when you do that. So there's more risk, more money. It's kind of life, in general. So that's pretty much the same. So that's how we project it, right? You have a history. Everybody has to try to go as a headliner. Everybody. Because if you don't go as a headliner, you're never going to have the numbers that represent your band. So you'll never get the opportunity to go on bigger tours. So it's like people will be like, have they ever headlined? No.
yeah.
We don't know what they're worth. So we're not bringing them. Unless you're friends, connected, same management, then maybe you get that shot. Like sometimes I'll do that. I'll go to one of my bands, like a Septic Flesh or something like that, and I'll be like, hey guys, this is a really cool band. I have a really good buzz like with these guys. They haven't headlined, but maybe they could open your tour. What do you guys think? I could do that. Like I try and push something that says, and they'll be like, we don't know him, but we'll help you out. Yeah, sure. You know what I mean? And then things happen. And that's exactly how it kind of works in our world. But like I said, the elite world, what I call them, it's a different ball game. You know what I mean? It's like that or you're not in. So
Yeah.
And I don't like that world too much personally. I've been more happier just being under the radar.
So you said earlier that bands can pretty much do almost everything themselves now, except for the touring.
Mhm.
So would you say that it's better for a band to be connected with a touring agency than with a label? Like higher priority?
It's a really good question. And so if it was me, I still believe record labels can give you the marketing you need. And this, you get associated to bands that are already established. I wouldn't sign a record deal for 8 albums, which a lot of bands are forced to do. Because the label is going to be like, we'll sign you for one record with 7 options, meaning that they get to choose the 7 options that are following. You don't get to choose if you stay or not. You're forced to stay. If they say that we're taking the option. We're taking the option. That's 8 records is a whole career for a lot of bands. That's like 20 years. So I would sign for 1 record if you're able to do it, and if you have a really good buzz, or maximum 2. You use the record label to get to the next level, getting exposure everywhere because they have an entire marketing team. And then you can try, maybe if you're good, you got a good buzz, your streams are high, go on your own, right? Or release your first record on your own. And like I said, get your own buzz going, then sign to a record label, do 1 record or 2, and then maybe go back to that. Because the best situation you can have right now is owning your own music. You own everything, it's 100% yours. And then if you have an agency and you have a buzz and you have an agency that puts you on the road, you don't need anything else. You're making all the money, you're on your own. It's way better. But it's difficult because you need marketing. You need to still invest money, right? So you might it's kind of cool in the beginning. It's like, see it this way. You want to open a restaurant, you might not have all the capital. You have to go to the bank. So record labels are like the bank, right? They'll give you a bit of money, marketing, they push you out there, and then your product sells. Your pizzas are selling, your burgers, or whatever you're doing, they're selling. And then you have your business. You pay back the bank, or you don't pay them, depending if your contract's over. And then you walk out, and then I'm on my own now. You could do that, or you can stay as a partner and then build more businesses. So it depends what you want to do. Some bands don't want the responsibility of all that. They're like, here's my music, you do everything, I'll take my cut, I make my money on the road. There's a lot of bands that do that. I just feel like, for example, Kataklysm has been with the same record label for, we're the oldest band signed to Nuclear Blast. We've been there since 94. or 93, I think. It's a long time, right? So we've been there for so long that my career, they own my catalog. So for me to start over now on my own, it doesn't make sense, So it depends. If you're a young band, I would give it a shot, because the world's just changed now. It's not the same as it used to be, right? There's no more
Yeah.
print mags, I used to love those. There's no more of
No,
those.
just
Yeah,
decibel and
yeah,
metal hammer.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we ended up talking a lot about touring today, and we're pretty much out of time, actually.
mm,
So I have just one question that is
okay.
tour related left.
Yeah, sure.
I was listening to your conversation with Dan DeFonce,
Okay.
and you mentioned eating Taco Bell on tour. Did you get the Feed the Beat sponsorship ever?
No.
Holy
Maybe
okay.
I should have
So it's
got.
impossible.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know. That's like, I mean, Taco Bell for me was, the place to go when you're touring, and we're talking about a long time ago now. I got to eat real Mexican now, right? But back then, that was a survival food. You know
Well,
what I mean?
100%, yeah.
You could feed a whole band for $20. You know what I mean? So it was
Yeah.
a different game. But I was,
Yeah.
that little story around that. I was we toured Mexico on that thing, right? We were there for a month in a time where we started in Juarez, Mexico, and ended up in Acapulco. We toured the whole country, and nobody's ever done that again. And there's a reason for it. It was insanity to do that. And we got a tour bus with no bunks. I mean, crazy stuff happened there. But I was so crazy brainwashed that the first thing I did when we got back into El Paso is I went to Taco Bell. My first meal in the States was Taco Bell coming out of Mexico. So yeah, that's the Taco Bell story that has stuck with me for all of this time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you guys.
Sweet.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Everyone listening, I hope you learned something great today. I know I learned a lot.
Same.
And until next time, make like a bull and throw those horns up.
Hell yeah.